Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel, and this is a video about the Virgo full moon and lunar eclipse happening on March 14th at 2:59 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. This will be the Twin Flame lunar update for the divine counterpart soulmate Twin Flame collective. Super excited to be here with you. Here is our full moon lunar eclipse. It is a gorgeous one with lots of supporting energy from Nessus, Saturn, Neptune. We got aspects from Uranus, aspects from Mars, aspects from Juno and Vesta, and from Jupiter. It's a full and I'm going to break it all down for you when it comes to what this is going to mean for the divine counterparts. It's a big one, especially since both counterparts are speaking to this eclipse. Typically, you kind of get one or the other speaking to a lunation. This one features both, and that makes it very impactful for the collective divine counterpart journeys. But I wanted to go ahead and say that since lovely Venus has gone retrograde and Juno here is about to go retrograde, both our divine feminine and human feminine energies retrograde at the same time. I have reopened relationship readings. They are available if you'd like to get your chart and your counterpart's chart done. Take a look at the day the two of you met and learn some things about the cycle and journey and where the two of you are at and what's coming next. You can book with me over at Kmoon Astro. The link to do that is below this video. Fair warning, those who are on my private list and in my astrological and twin flame community have already booked most of March. There's like only one half-hour session left in the month of March. But April is open, and if you like to be the first to know, I strongly recommend you get on the private list because private listers were notified before anyone else. You can get on the private list at the link below. It's free and it gives you the opportunity to get special savings discounts and first to know information from me. We've also entered eclipse season. This is the first of two that will take place in the next 30 days. And there is an eclipse video that lays out all of the eclipses on the Virgo Pisces axis. So you'll want to take a look at that. It's linked below this video so you can better understand how it'll impact the collective. But if you'd like to know how that's going to impact you personally once we get into April, now's the time before April books out and before that eclipse comes to get one of those early April readings on your calendar so that we can walk through what this will mean and how to use the energy to your advantage. Here's our super exciting lunar eclipse, Virgo full moon, making those beautiful aspects that I mentioned. I go into great detail about what all of this means inside of the Lightworker energy update. So I'm going to encourage you to listen to that as a part one and this as a part two. But in summary, I will say this is a very important eclipse of closure, completion, endings, wrap ups to seasons in our life. Now, where it comes to the divine counterparts in particular, there is some wrap up of energies when it comes to the way the connection has been unfolding. This is a transitional moment where you'll move from one the way the connection has been unfolding into the next stage of the way the connection will unfold. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just change, and all change can serve you when you know what you want and you know how to use the energy. Let's get into some greater specifics around what this looks like for each of the counterpart energetics. I read Juno as the divine feminine energy, as she is the wife of the zodiac, specifically the wife of Jupiter. She's in communication with this full moon energy. I'm going to just highlight that here and specifically what this means for her, this lunar eclipse. in sextile to the lunar eclipse energy. This lunar eclipse is speaking to the south node. She is preparing to go retrograde. This is the furthest she's going to get before she drops into retrograde motion into the sign of Scorpio and then moves back forward into Sagittarius in October. Between now and then, though, we've got a lot of ground to cover as she jumps into Scorpio, which is our sign that deals with closure, completions, and endings, which only amplifies that this energy in our divine feminine energetic fields does mark some type of closure, completion, or ending to the way we've been working with our individual divine feminine energy. Full moons are endings. Lunar eclipses are super endings. And here she is preparing to go back into the sign of completion and endings after a 1 degree dip into the sign of faith, truth, hope, and optimism. Many have reported experiencing, and it's definitely something I have channeled, that when Juno goes retrograde, it is a period of time where you can feel a dampening of the connection's intensity. It doesn't mean that the connection is over for those of you who identify in separation or identify in some format of like non communication. If you should feel that dampening, know that it is temporary. It's the kind of thing that's meant to allow the intensity of the connection to subside so that the things that normally would get taken care of if you had 100% of your energetic bandwidth available to you, you're able to take care of and focus on those things during the Juno retrograde. Now, specifically, and I've talked about this on multiple different broadcasts I did with some special hosts. I want to say thank you to the hosts who allowed me. Return to One Quantum Healing, Made for Love. I did a Juno retrograde special on your channels. I deeply appreciate you letting me share with your audience. If you're a member of my audience and you did not hear either one of those Juno retrograde specials, strongly recommend you go listen to both. Links are in the post section of this channel. But essentially, high level detail as Juno retrogrades in Scorpio, this is going to open up an opportunity for our divine feminine energetic fields to work with Scorpionic energy in any of its myriad formats over the between now and October 5th when she gets out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius. What are Scorpionic themes? In addition to closure, completions, endings, it's alchemy, transformation, and the resurrection cycle, ending, integration, and rebirth. In addition to that, we also see Scorpio as our sign that represents sexuality and two becoming one through the alchemy of sacred intimacy. We also see all things sacral chakra, reproductive organ related. So, if there's any trauma, hormonal imbalance, or healing that needs to be done in this arena, this is the time to do it. Male or female, doesn't matter the body you're in. We all have stuff. Additionally, Scorpio also deals with power, fear, shame, guilt, and rage. And so, if you have any of those shadow work emotions that it's time to face and integrate the experiences that cause that severing of self, and you need to bring that self back online, this is the time to do it, especially if any of those feelings came as a result of experiences you've had in the connection. It's a wonderful time for forgiveness, for healing, for release. It's also a wonderful time for integration and laying to rest the past. It's also a beautiful time for leaning into recreation and restructuring. Now, the last thing Scorpio deals with, astrologically speaking, is something we call other people's money. Other people's money deals with grants, loans, credit, taxes, inheritances and wills, payouts from lotteries, payouts from lawsuits. So it's basically all the money that you can have or deal or interface with that you don't get from working a job. Okay. With that in mind, clean up in the financial area for many is long overdue, especially with some of the myriad changes to the economic landscape worldwide. We all know that the cost of living not kept in sync in the way that we would have liked to have seen them. We're living in a very different time period, and this new period does require some new financial approaches to maintaining and sustaining a life that has longevity and safety in it. So for some of you, it's going to be about one or two of those things. For others of you, it's going to be about all of those things. Thank goodness we have through October to work it out. For those of you who identify in some form of separation, again, like I said, you may feel a sort of dampening of the intensity of the connection, and that's going to free up mental, emotional, spiritual bandwidth to take on these topics that need your attention, so that whether it's with the person you think is your counterpart or somebody else, union energy can land for you the closer we get to 2028. And I talk about why 2028 is so important in those updates. Again, check out Made for Love's channel for our collaboration. Check out Return to One Quantum Healing. Those were exclusively focused on the Juno retrograde, the divine feminine energy. You'll find that those channels have a special from me with them where there's channeled information and also deeper dives on this. Now, because this eclipse is lunar eclipse, full moon, ending, plus it's connected to the south node, which is about closures to the past, doorways to the past, and Juno is preparing to go back into the sign of ending. There's so many layers here that are indicative of closure and completion in our divine feminine energetic fields. Now, it could be a closure and completion of the way the connection has been structured up to this point, from non-communication to communication, from communication to a period of rest and reflection, from a period of being engaged to being married, from maybe being married, some of you being divorced or separated. It could be multiple different changes depending upon your circumstance and situation. But there is some level of the way the feminine energy, and we all have it, way it's been running, closing out a cycle, a season, a chapter, and preparing to clear the decks so that she can go into the next chapter more whole, more complete, more fulfilled in her own right. And we see that wholeness in, alluded to here as she is in trine with Saturn and with Neptune. Saturn here wants to restore wholeness and integrity by cutting off access to her energy by anything that would harm her or undermine her wholeness. And Neptune wants to then wash away those old structures that would bind her to a state of unwholeness. So consider in your own interior feminine energy. We all have it, male, female, it doesn't matter. We all have a capacity to receive. We all have a capacity to be creative. We all have a capacity to bend, flex, and flow. We all have an innate capacity to shapeshift. These are feminine qualities. And the divine feminine takes this to the next level by having it being infused with our divine creatorship and our divinity. In those places of your selfhood that I just described, where are you wrapping up a chapter, completing a cycle? Where are you bending and flexing no more? Where are you shape shifting to serve others no longer? Where are you appeasing through receiving what no longer serves you? These are the places in your life where you are having the closure of divine feminine energies chapter, or a chapter closing in your divine feminine energetic field. Some of you it could be work, others money. If you need some help, I can identify this in your chart and we can look at it so you know what to work with more intentionality. Now, in addition to that, we do see Juno in this conversation with Uranus, and this is an aspect of tension. Uranus is the original divine counterpart. He was created by Gaia to be her lover, to wrap around her. And they co created together for a long time till things went sideways or, left. But that was Uranus. All of that to say, the Uranian energy can quantum leap things. It can move things to the next level in a non-linear and non-sequential fashion. When Uranus is in an aspect of tension with a planet, it does so in a way that the planet receiving Uranian energy can find uncomfortable. So, this movement of closure in the divine feminine energetic fields, with Uranus acting on Juno from the opposition, these closures can come quick, sudden, out of the blue, and be very uncomfortable because they may not make sense to our rational mind. Again, Uranian energy is non sequential, it's non linear, it skips steps. So, because of this, there is movement forward at the quantum level. It's just not perceivable in a way that makes logical sense to the conscious mind. So, there could be things happening for you in connection now that just don't really make sense. But because it's Uranus activating a lot of these changes, Saturn too, Saturn wants integrity in the 3D, structural integrity, boundaries and a foundation. Uranus wants to quantum leap into the next because it's these two actively in the divine feminine's energetic field right now. This is opening up whatever change is happening, even if it's a difficult one for you to comprehend right now. Whatever that change is, it's for your benefit. And it's also for the benefit of you being able to be in a union relationship down the road. So trust it. Trust your process. Trust your instincts on this. Trust what's closing. Trust what you're guided to step away from, even if it's hard to step away. This is really going to serve you in the fullness of time, even if it's challenging to digest right now. Trust that it's happening for you, not to you. We see a sextile to Martian energy here. Actually, she's not. That's a full moon. That's sextile to Martian energy. She is in conversation as well with Pluto. So let's highlight Pluto here. Pluto is the governing planet, one of the governing planets of Scorpio, which is where she's about to spend the next 6 months. With her speaking to Pluto, it brings her into communication with power. And it's an empowering energy that can have you feel a bold confidence about actions that you know you need to take now, even though the emotional process of catching your third dimension up with your knowingness may be a little uncomfortable. With Pluto in communication to Juno, this can play out in multiple ways. First of all, like I mentioned, bold confidence in actions needed in the arena of connection. For some of you, this is going to be about some communication because we do see that she is in loose trine to Mercury, who's about to go retrograde. Also, loose trine to Venus, who's already retrograde. For some of you, this is really going to be about taking some bold action to say some things you've never said in connection, to move connection forward and really turn or upset the apple cart in with your counterpart that may have lacked vulnerability, lacked truth, lacked transparency, or lacked personal empowerment and being and trusting that you could handle your own vulnerability with them and however they would respond to your vulnerability, or trusting that you could handle their vulnerability with you when they present it to you. There is a bold about face in this energy where if you have been in some sort of cycle where communication has lacked, it's lacked vulnerability, lacked truth, lacked transparency, this is the opportunity to reverse that immediately, end it, and step onto a completely new timeline. Now, for others of you, this Plutonian influence does bring forward an element of secrets and secrets revealed, especially because Uranus is in communication with her as well. Some of you are going to be revealing your heart or get confessions from other people. Others of you will take this opportunity just with yourself to reveal things to yourself that have been difficult for you to face. Now, for some, this is going to be just straight trauma related, things that happened to you that should not have happened to you. Thank you, Gabor Mate, for that definition. Things that should have happened for you that did not happen for you. Again, shout out Dr. Gabor Mate for that definition of trauma. You're going to be spending some time getting intimate with some of the traumas from your past, that it's time to heal and reclaim the severed and injured parts of yourself back from those incidents. This full moon lunar eclipse is going to open a space up for homecoming, where that self severance and self denial and self repression will no longer be a part of your way forward. Now, for others, this Plutonian energy, it does, I hate to say it, open the floor, open the gateway for continuing to indulge in secrecy energy, love triangles, third parties, this sort of thing. I have found that twin flame connections in particular, and I can't tell you if you're a twin or if you're not a twin, but I have found that these connections really only thrive in truth and transparency. I've seen twin flames be able to do miraculous things in the world of relationship when there's honesty on the table. But where there's dishonesty, I have seen these connections destruct repeatedly. I'm only sharing this with you because I talk to a lot of twin flames. I've seen the patterns redundantly over the years. Where you have a love triangle in your circumstance, you will find that this Plutonian energy and this Uranian energy over the course of the Juno retrograde will create exposure. Whether you intend to expose it or you didn't, I am seeing that this combination, and they're going to be talking to her a lot for a long period of time over the course of 2025. Secrets coming out is going to be a theme. So rather than letting people find out, this is a really good time to just expose yourself. Come to the table with transparency, honesty, and truth. With the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, both in the sign of the self, and then Venus going back into the sign that deals with kind of unconditional love. Huge opportunity for self exposure to lead to higher level timelines, people getting on the page with the uh, highest good for everyone involved. It does have the potential to go much better at this time than you would have expected it to, especially if someone has to find out and confront you with it rather than you being like, cards on the table, here's the deal with it. Trust me on this. I've just seen it a number of times. You cards on the table is going to be the empowering use of Pluto rather than the other person having to find out through a Uranian exposure. Okay. So that's the best guidance I can give you about this. Based on what I'm seeing, it can go a lot of different ways, but trust me, if there's a conversation that needs to be had, this Mercury retrograde is really going to serve us well to utilize it, even if it's hard things that need to be shared or difficult things that you're hearing. There's a lot of supportive energy to really walk through the specifics of what happened, why it happened, what we need, and what we want to do going forward in some very positive ways, given the way this energy is set up. It's one of the best setups for a positive conversation that I've seen in a long time. And you guys know, I'll tell you, maybe now's not a good time for a conversation or a reveal. When it's a good time, I'm going to tell you because I want you to have the best planetary support possible for open, honest conversations with people you love. Okay. Um, and I mentioned Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, Mercury, Venus, talked about Uranus, talked about the eclipse. Okay, great. That's the divine feminine energy in a nutshell. She's wrapping up a cycle. Now, for those of you who identify in some format of union, you may find in your individual lives that there is something in your feminine energies that the two of you are recognizing, yeah, this isn't working for our connection. We need to shift this, or one person needs to shift. Let's say you've been in too much feminine energy with the job and it's not leaving you enough time to take an active approach in your relationship. You're going to find this is where you need to put some boundaries up around the job, set some new parameters and expectations at work so that you can have a healthy relationship at home. The inverse could also be true. Whatever's going on in the feminine energy for both counterparts or for the connection itself, if it's in a place of unhealthy imbalance, this eclipse is going to make it plain and give you the courage to take some steps to make change. Okay. Now, those of you who identify in some format of separation, could play out in any of the ways I've already discussed. Additional interpretations can include a sense of returning for some of you. This is where you may actually hear from someone who you've been in separation with for a very long time, with both Juno and Venus going retrograde simultaneously. This is the pull of the past being unignorable for all of us. I spoke at length about some of this over in the post section. If you're not subscribed to the channel, definitely do check out those posts. I provided a brief Juno Venus retrograde guide over there. So more details are over there about how to work with it, especially if you identify in separation. Okay, so that's our divine feminine energy. Let's take a look at Jupiter, our divine masculine energy. He is the husband of the zodiac, whereas Venus is the human feminine, Mars is our human masculine, Juno is our divine feminine, Jupiter is our divine masculine. Mars just finished a retrograde. Hallelujah, that is done. I was really over it with that energy over the holidays. And into the beginning of the year, here is Jupiter right here, also direct at the moment in the sign of Gemini, our sign of communication, curiosity, exploration, and consciousness. Jupiter is going to make a square to this Virgo full moon lunar eclipse. What does this mean for the divine masculine energy? For the divine masculine energy, it's a T-square. Let's actually highlight that because that's going to make this a lot plainer to understand. with Jupiter in T square to these two, there's a real push in the divine masculine energy. There's a closure ending here, closure energy here, and ending energy here because it's a full moon and a lunar eclipse. But it's a closure energy of all of the shadow side of Gemini. Well, what's the shadow side of Gemini? Gemini has its uses, its neutrality, its benefits, its neutrality, and its shadow. Shadow side of Gemini, fence sitting, indecision, gossiping, like talking way too much with way too little forethought about what's coming out of the mouth. Jupiter in shadow can also be duplicity, double mindedness, two facedness, saying one thing, doing another, this sort of thing. So, where that's in play in our interior divine masculine energy, this eclipse is going to make it plain. Saturn has already been working overtime with Jupiter since last year and Nessus as well to rein it in, to knock it off, to say, hey, this isn't working. There's backlash when we behave in these ways. It's time for us to up level the way we operate in light here on the planet. And there's also a lovely energy here as well with Jupiter, Saturn, and Nessus to support overindulgence coming into balance. And that is really what we get with this T square to the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. We get the opportunity to see truth for what it is, very plainly, that if we are feeling stuck, it's likely because there is some version of Jupiter shadow in Gemini we're operating in. Indecision, double mindedness, one foot in the old, one foot in the new, inability to recognize truth when it's staring us in the face, unwillingness to act on it, wanting to kind of hang out on the surface and not go deep. This is the time to really occupy Sagittarian energy with our celestial light body incarnate and say, hey, I do know what the truth is. I can act on the truth and I can rein in these behaviors and take my Gemini energy into the light. Jupiter Gemini in the light, curious, expansive, action taking because it's willing to experiment. If this doesn't work, I have the power to change my mind and do something else. I'm not going to box myself in, but I am at least going to try these sorts of things. Okay. Communicative, with intention, with purpose. Gemini can communicate thoughtfully as well. These are Gemini qualities in the light where there has been Jupiter and Gemini in shadow in our divine masculine energy fields. This eclipse is kind of pulling us by the collar and saying, hey, knock it off. Time for you to step up. You're better than this. You can do better. This sort of thing. So it's a really lovely energy in our divine masculine energetic fields of correction, of guidance and proper structure and closure for where we've been operating in shadow. Now, in love in particular, shadow side of Gemini can be love triangles and indecisiveness. I'm going to give a little myself over here to you, and a little bit of myself over there to you. And I'm not going to make a decision. I'm just going to keep it all going as long as I can. Shadow side of Gemini in love, light side of Gemini in love, fabulous communicator. You'll know what you need to know. You'll get asked quality questions. You're going to have a great time being on the same page mentally and communication wise with another person. Light side of Gemini. Really great time to transmute shadow into light through choice, which is what the T square demands of us. It demands choice. And again, choice really lives over here in the mutable sign that's unoccupied at these degrees, the 10 to 20th degree, and that's truth, faith, hope, and optimism. Telling the truth, facing the truth, faith that if we lean into the truth, it is going to work out to our benefit, optimism and hope that because we have chosen that pathway, it will serve us and it'll serve us in connection as well. Have courage. Courage, mon braves. Mes braves. I don't know what the French expression is. Maybe one of you will tell me in the comments, but you get it. Have some courage here. This corrective energy is really going to serve us, especially because we see Jupiter having a trine to Chariklo. Chariklo is our energy of divine intercession and blessing via intercession. And so, because it's in a nice trine to Jupiter there, where we do choose to step out and do something new. She's in the sign of something new. That's Aquarius. Where we choose to step out into something new, there is blessing. There's wind at our back. For breaking patterns, there is reward at this time. So, like I said, one of the best possible times to turn over a new leaf in connection and certainly in communication and consciousness, as both Chariklo and Jupiter sit in air signs. Lastly, we see that Jupiter is in communication with Saturn and with Neptune here in a square to these two. And again, this is a very sobering influence for Jupiter and Gemini. Saturn and Nessus speaking to Jupiter and Gemini is like reining Jupiter in such a way where Jupiter can't get carried away with itself in too much shadow. So if you're feeling correction or convicted around that in your consciousness, just trust it and step up and do whatever the right thing is for you. It's going to be different for each person. But you know what it's going to be for your situation. This Neptune energy is doing its best to really assist with letting go and releasing. Neptune's no longer really in that square anymore. Thank goodness, because that can make it a little challenging. But the Saturnian energy is really creating a lot of foundation and some optimism for taking positive action moving forward. So I like to see it. We also see Jupiter speaking to Chiron very loosely here via the sextile. This is all of us in our interior divine masculine energy being called upon to step into way showing with this aspect. Jupiter is the natural teacher of the zodiac. Chiron was known as a teacher and a healer. The two of them in the sextile open up the teaching, the healing, the way showing for the collective at this time. And so you may find friends, family, colleagues, etc., reach out to you for advice while this Chiron Jupiter communication is still very active. Okay. For those of you who identify and find that the Jupiter energy could potentially really have, you doing some reflection and taking some personal accountability and responsibility for why your connection is where it is. Whether the accountability and the responsibility is needing to learn more about communication or how to be vulnerable or dealing with your own issues professionally, financially, with your family, dealing with your own stuff around transparency and communication or decision making, where you need to get some sort of like step up in accountability. This full moon in Virgo lunar eclipse, this is going to show it to you. This is where you personally have backed away from love. It's interesting. I was having a wonderful conversation with a client earlier today. Sometimes we don't even realize that we've shut down from love in connection because we are holding ourselves to the standard of the way we've been treated and not to the standard of the depth of love that we feel. The depth of love that we feel calls us to a higher standard of accountability and the way we handle the love injured, traumatized, and wounded when they come into our presence. And in order to operate at that higher level, yeah, it does require us to step up in our healing. Requires us to step up in our growth and development so that we know how to treat people who don't know how to treat love. And this is one of the many things that you could be learning, especially if you're identifying in separation at this time. For those who identify in some format of union, this is where you may find there are some critical talks and conversations that need to happen about breaking ruts, getting out of the status quo, and moving things forward for the connections benefit that have been on pause or spinning wheels for a long time. I don't know what that would be for you. It's going to be different for different couples, but you'll know what that would be. And if you need any support, you know where to find me. kmoonastro.com. Link is below this video. You can book a relationship reading or a couples reading where for 90 minutes, kind of like a couples massage, I'll sit and I'll talk to you and your counterpart so to help you both understand each other's strengths, assets, and how you both can get on the same page going forward. Okay. Booking link for all of that is below. It is my honor, pleasure, and privilege to be here to do this with you at each lunation. I can't wait to do the Aries solar eclipse, new moon solar eclipse with you coming up here in the next week. If you heard something that resonates, I invite you to hit that like button, share this with a twin flame who's a friend. And if you've sought me out before and you're back again for more, but you're not subscribed yet, this is a perfect time to subscribe so that you get that notification every time these videos become available for your guidance. Love being here with you. Thank you so much for all of your kindness in the comments. It truly makes my heart sing that you guys know how to be kind to me and to one another. Thank you to my lovely moderators for keeping the comment section clean. Really appreciate your hard work as well. And I look forward to doing this again in the very near future. Take great care and bye for now.